Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Cybersecurity Recruiter podcast. Today, I'm joined by my good friend Cornel. How you doing, Cornel?
Hey, Tom. Doing fine. Thank you.
Yeah, good, mate. I've just had a coffee. I know you just topped up your coffee, so we're all energized, mate, and ready to rock, aren't we?
That's exactly right. Yeah, man. You're going to have to cut me off if I get to rambling.
No worries, mate. I'm looking forward to this one. I know we're going to talk about journey. It'll be nice to hear about your transition into the business world. I know when we were on the phone, about 6 weeks ago, something like that. We were chatting. Yeah,
Yeah.
something like that. And I know things have been going well. I know February was absolutely a fantastic month for you, and I know for some it's a tough market. So for everyone listening, we're going to unpack Cornel's journey, and we're going to talk about the success that he's having at the minute in the business world as well. I'm excited, mate. You feeling good?
Oh, yeah. Nah, feeling great, man.
Cool, good. So, for everyone listening, Cornel du Preez started off back in 2014 as a info technical analyst. That was at the Cheshire T Regional Hospital. You were then at the University of Georgia, North Georgia, where you were an info security analyst.
Yep.
And then you were at Lexus Nexus Risk Solutions. You started off as a penetration analyst and progressed on to a security engineer. And then you were a senior pen tester at North State Tech Solutions. You were also a principal at Honeywell, and then you made the big leap from being an employee to an employer, and you are now the co-founder and senior partner to Security, and you've been doing that for the last 4 years, mate. Have I got your intro about?
Man, you nailed it. That's exactly right.
Cool, but I've done you a bit of an intro, my friend. I never think I can do it as well as you. If you could tell us who you are, what you're up to, it'd be nice to have a bit of a high level overview of where the business is at the minute, what you guys and girls do, and so on and so forth. So I'll let you fire away, mate.
Yeah. No, that sounds great, man. Yeah. You covered a little bit of my backstory career wise and where I've been. I do come from a very technical background, which honestly I think has just propelled my ability to be this co-founder and start Abricto Security because I've got a lot of that perspective of what what makes an amazing consultant, but also got that perspective of working in an enterprise environment and understanding their concerns and the things that keep them up at night. A little bit more about my background, like you said, having been in higher education, having been in healthcare, been in technology, and been in consulting. I have just played in a lot of different spaces and met some really incredible people. What I do today at Abricto Security is I lead our strategy and engineering. So I take a look at what is it that our clients, our prospects, what is it that they need in this market? Obviously, at Abricto Security, we are offensive security consulting specialists, and people immediately jump to thinking about penetration testing. And it's true, we do a lot of penetration testing, but I'm really trying to look into the horizon and see, hey, pen testing is great, but how can we differentiate what we're doing at Abricto to be able to stand out and to ultimately land a little bit more of that market share? So that's my primary responsibility at Abricto, but also work very closely with our consultants, our consulting team, making sure that we're doing all the right things, attending the right training, and just essentially doing what needs to be done to stay on that bleeding edge.
Cool, mate. Thanks for that. And there's a few things to get into there. I think a point that I'd like to pick up on in a couple of minutes' time is the fact you've come from that technical background. I can imagine when you're managing the guys and girls, obviously when you know exactly what goes on when those hands are on the keyboard,
Yep.
from a leadership perspective, from respect from the team, I can just see endless amounts of benefits there. So we'll get into that in just a minute. But what I do want to ask you is, going from that transition to being a pen tester, a security engineer, to actually setting up your own business, like we talk about getting outside your comfort zone and getting comfortable being uncomfortable. But talk us through that, mate. Was that absolutely petrifying? It must have been.
Petrifying, I think, is actually pretty close to what that whole experience was like. Yeah, Tom, it was certainly not on a whim. What I'm actually extremely fortunate, and I think if you talk to most people, and I know, especially in the cybersecurity realm, it seems like you have spoken to most people. A lot of people know who Tom is, but when you chat with him, you realize that at some point, most people in this industry were given a break, meaning they got their foot in the door, right? That they were at the right place at the right time. They knew the right people and they had the right skill set to be able to get their foray into cybersecurity. No different. I said I was very fortunate, and that's the truth. Having worked at Stalwart Systems, which then became North State Technology Solutions, I met some really incredible people. That's actually where I met my co-founder, and he and we just built a really good relationship, and we stayed in touch with each other even while I was doing offensive security stuff at Honeywell. He and I just kept the conversation going and said, "Hey, you know what? We've got some really good connections out in the industry, and we have really good talent." So he's specifically referencing me and some of the folks that we had worked with in the past that, again, it's all about relationships. We kept really good relationships with those folks. And so the more he and I talked about it, the more it became apparent that, frankly, it's time. It's time for us to get Abricto Security started and to start bringing those people back to work together as a team again. And yeah, Tom, you said petrifying. You've constantly got this voice in the back of your head that's, man, are we doing the right thing? Is this thing really going to take off? Are we going to be successful? And I guess my answer to that is what gave me peace was knowing that I was working with the right people. Right, I had found a really super solid co-founder, or he found me. I don't know. We found each other. And again, we knew right out the gate that we could bring on a couple of folks, an architect, super principal consultant, and that we already had a network of prospects that we previously had worked with as clients. So yeah, it was unsettling, but at the same time, I trusted the people that I was working with, and I trusted our relationships that we had previously built with those clients. So yeah, needless to say, man, we're coming up on 4 years now, and yeah, knock on wood, we're doing exceptionally well. I couldn't be happier with the overall success of Abricto, but also and especially the people that work here.
Yeah, good man, good. Listen, I remember when we were on the phone, you were like, yeah, I think it was like, you were like, February's been the best month we've ever had. I was like, you're coming on the pod and you're telling us all how you're doing it.
Yeah. Yeah. February was incredible for us. And let me just preface this with, historically, that's not always been the case, right? Q1 it's people are just getting started coming into the new year, their budgets, they don't necessarily want to exhaust those right out the gate. There's a couple of headwinds that we face whenever the new year starts. But because of just essentially a confluence of really awesome opportunities for us that came together in February, and frankly, January wasn't bad for us either. We had a pretty solid January, but yeah, February, Tom, when you and I last spoke, man, we were just in heads down mode. We were in the thick of it. And yeah, I think that just goes back to having really good clients and being selective who we choose to do business with. I think those are probably the keys to our success, if you want to put it that way. We put a great deal of effort into making sure our people are skilled and ready to deliver assessments at the drop of a pin. And then we couple that with working with, frankly, enterprises have been really good for us, primarily because there's a degree of predictability and stability and returning business. That doesn't necessarily explain why February was so good. Like I said, there were just a couple of things that needed to be pulled in earlier and a couple of projects that got pushed out a little bit later. And so when we took a look at our schedule, they just landed right smack dab in February, which again, for us was great because historically Q1 has usually been a little bit slower. Yeah, me, my co-founder of the team, we were all just super jazzed. It was good work. Like we were delivering really awesome projects, not just the mind numbing stuff, but really some stuff that would push the envelope and give us the ability to stretch a little bit to deliver some out of the box pen tests.
Yeah, cool, mate. Thanks for that. And you mentioned there about being selective, and I think that's such a major point. I think in any consulting game, whether it's a recruitment consultancy or a cybersecurity consultancy, I almost think, and I've heard people say this before, you've got to have the ability to say no to certain stuff. You use the word being selective, and I think that's so key because the right relationships make the business really nice, and the wrong relationships can sometimes just be more, just not even worth entering
Right.
into for either side. But there's so many different aspects like this. Obviously, we've talked about getting the right technical people in place, and you've got retaining people, branding, marketing, like getting everything set up. We've used the word like relationships. Obviously, a major part of all this to having success in the cybersecurity business game is that client acquisition piece and stuff like that. And this might be a tricky one to answer, but I'll ask you anyway. For people that are listening that have got their own security businesses that are, maybe their technical team's phenomenal, but they just haven't got that client acquisition piece quite running seamlessly, or they could do with more clients. Is there any other kind of tips or hints or advice you give, or anything you guys and girls are doing at Abricto to keep that client, so that quality of earnings, to keep that regular business coming
Yeah.
through and acquire?
Yeah. Good question. And I'd love to provide like a silver bullet to say, hey, do this and you're going to get out there and you're going to crush it. I don't think there is a silver bullet. All I know is we have strategies that have worked well for us. I'll highlight a couple of those real fast. The first is we're changing the game. We're doing things a little bit differently. I mentioned earlier, penetration testing is great. It's bread and butter. We have to be able to do it as an offensive security consulting firm. But we're also looking ahead and trying to see what are other areas where our skill sets can provide value to our clients. And so at Abricto, we've come up with a couple different ways of delivering that value. The first one is our Aardwolf platform, essentially, taking the offensive security mindset and applying it to our client organizations from an external perspective, saying, hey, look, if the bad guys were going to try to break in, the odds that a Nessus vulnerability scan are going to give you the blueprint for how that's going to happen are fairly slim, right? But if we can take our team and we can take that mindset and apply it at scale and say, look, these are the things that you really need to take a look at. These are the things that are really exposing your organization to risk. That is a game changer. That is something that's going to provide tremendous value, and it's going to differentiate what we can offer to our clients and to our prospects. So what that means is we're not just competing for bottom dollar on a penetration test. Not that we ever do that, but I know a lot of unfortunately, a lot of folks do have to do that, but we're, again, delivering that differentiated value. So that's one way that we've done that. The other big thing that's allowed us to continue to bring in that new business is in the same vein of thought of delivering differentiated value, is just changing how we can deliver penetration testing, both network pen testing, application pen testing. We recently, or this is a sneak peek for some of the listeners, we're getting ready to release AppSec as a service, and the value differentiator there for our clients is just going to be, I think, really massive. Stay tuned for that. But those are the things that we're doing to be able to earn that new business. But I'd say, man, on top of that, there's just nothing that beats traditional relationship building, right? Getting out there, building your network. Again, Brent, my co-founder, and I, each of us have over 10 years of just networking and building these relationships, so that when we did start Abricto Security, we could then leverage those relationships. And people already knew who we were. They knew we delivered good work. So it became a no-brainer for them to want to do business with us. But if other folks are listening and they're starting their security businesses, I would say those are probably two of the biggest things that I think will help folks get started.
Definitely, mate. Thanks for that, buddy. So just to summarize that, so yeah, essentially offering additional value in other areas to your existing customers through the Wolf platform, and then also delivering your AppSec as a service. How does that go down, mate? Is that you'll be on a scoping call or delivering some findings to an existing customer, and you would mention it, or is it just done over email? How's that kind of come to life, as it were?
AppSec as a service, how is it delivered, or where do we find the opportunities to deliver that differentiated value?
Yeah, where how do you mention it to existing
Gotcha.
clients? Is it
We've really focused on the enterprise approach to deliver some degree of consistency and predictability to our business. But something I failed to mention is that AppSec as a service is not specific to that industry. It's not specific to the enterprise world. And where we've actually seen a lot of success with it is with essentially SaaS-based companies. If you look at a company and its entire business model revolves around its application that it delivers to its customers, those are ideal clients for us. So we either farm our network, we take a look out and say, hey, which of these folks are working and are in decision making capacities at these SaaS companies, or frankly, Tom, a lot of it is just word of mouth, right? Folks are out there talking to each other, and they're hearing, hey, we have these challenges where these in-house pen testers, or maybe it's a different pen testing firm, shows up last minute and they deliver this pen test report. And now these business owners of these SaaS companies, they're trying to go to market. And now everybody has to slam on the brakes because before they can go to market, they have to address all these vulnerabilities that just got dropped on their desk. That is extremely frustrating, I would imagine. So when they're having conversations, peer conversation, they're saying, yeah, this is just really hard for us to be able to go to market and do securely with our application. That's an awesome opportunity for that word of mouth to be like, these Abricto guys, like they'll come in here, they'll partner with you at every stage of the development lifecycle. And so when that pen test comes around at the very end, if they've done their job, there shouldn't be these giant critical vulnerabilities where they have to completely re-architect authentication and authorization. Again, those are prime opportunities for us to get plugged into those conversations.
Yeah, thank you, mate. And it sounds to me like you're really putting yourself in your client's shoes as well. It's like you described there, a pen test report being dumped on the desk essentially just before a big SaaS product's about to go into a production environment. If you're doing that as a pen testing consultancy, that's going to really stress your customers out and probably not going to add the most value. So I love the way you're putting yourself in their shoes, mate. It's really cool.
Yeah, for sure, man. And frankly, that's been the driver of, we don't look across the industry to say, hey, what are the other guys doing? Should we be doing that? That's automatically assuming a reactive approach. And I don't see that playing out super well for us or for anybody. So the way we deliver that value is we listen to our clients and we learn from their challenges, from their needs. And we say, oh, we've got that skill set in house. We can build and cater a service to meet your needs. That's how Aardwolf got started. That's how AppSec as a service got started. And I think that's why we're able to retain the amount of clients that we have.
Yeah, it's a real relationship-driven approach, mate, and it's a longer-term way of thinking, but it's a much easier way of doing business for everyone. I like the way you say as well, mate, there's no silver bullet. I think these days as well, not everyone, but I think people are looking for that silver bullet. Can you just do this? Can you just leverage some fancy automation tool and you just win new business? But like I say, you can't get away from that good old-fashioned long-term relationship-driven, and it's no quick fix, but it does work.
Man, I 100% agree. It's people don't buy, they don't buy from companies, they buy from other people. So if you have those relationships, that's just where it's at. And yeah, Tom, to your point, they're not easy to come by, right? It takes work, it takes effort, but it pays off in the long run. It has for us.
Yeah, it does, mate. If I think about any kind of sale, acquisition, merger of a business that takes place, really, when you scrape it all back, what that value is, it's a set of people working cohesively together and leveraging a set of really strong relationships. That's where the value is in any business. Obviously, maybe sometimes there's some like really sophisticated IP or some certain tech behind it, but generally speaking, especially in the consultancy game, yeah, it's everything we're describing. But just to flip back 5 or 10 minutes, mate, you mentioned there at the start, obviously you've come from a really technical background, and I'm presuming that does help when you're managing the people. If there's issues, if people are on an assessment or a test, you can really relate to it. Do you still stay hands on keyboard or not? Or you're too busy, or does that that knowledge that's there really help you manage the people?
Yeah, it goes back to I've been fortunate, I've been blessed. So I get a little bit of the best of both worlds when I'm leading. And I say leading the team, we have a manager of consulting, we have a team lead. They're really the ones on the front lines working closely with the consultants and providing that oversight, that guidance, that coaching and mentoring. But yeah, I can't resist fully extracting myself from that process. And so to answer your question, yeah, I do still get in the weeds, the hands-on keyboard stuff. I look at least 2 projects a year where, again, I'm fortunate. I get to hand pick those projects. And it's usually when I've already have a close relationship with those product owners or with those development teams. So that lets me, it grounds me in reality,
Mm.
right? I think unfortunately it can become easy to distance yourself from the technical side of project delivery. And I don't want to ever be distanced from that. I think, again, people buy from people, and it's because they know us and they know the quality of the work that we deliver. So if I'm out there preaching the good word, talking to folks about, yeah, like we best in the business, like we're out there delivering awesome assessments, I want to be working closely with my team so that when I'm saying that, I'm speaking from a place of truth because I've actually seen what our folks are capable of doing. And so, yeah, one of the best ways we do that is they'll be doing their testing. They'll pull up a team screen share session, and the rest of the team just gets to learn from each other. And I do the same thing those 2 times a year that I get to deliver those projects. And I say I get to, it's because I don't always necessarily have the availability, but when I do the same thing. I'll share my screen and spread the knowledge so that other people can learn. Because I think everybody, whether it's me doing that penetration testing or whether it's somebody who's less experienced, I think we all can learn from each other. No two hackers, no two security consultants are going to do an assessment the exact same way. They have their own methods, their own tools that they like to use, and we like to capitalize on those opportunities.
Definitely, man. And as you were speaking there, it's so true. When you do keep your kind of hand in, or whatever the phrase is, I think it makes a difference when you're talking to the team. And if I relate this to my day job, when I'm on a client meeting, I still do boatloads of recruitment, candidate, client,
Okay.
everything. And when you're on a client call, and you can tell a story that actually did happen last week, and it helps you on client meetings because you're like, yeah, this happened and I did this,
Oh,
and
for sure.
it's storytelling's like really good. And when you've got real life kind of case studies that you can give to clients, a challenging searches you've completed on, or a challenging assessment, or a certain CVE you found, or a zero day, whatever it might be, when you can tell those stories, there's a lot of benefits from a sales perspective, from the team's perspective, and also, like I say, let's be honest, mate, from your enjoyment perspective, like there's
Oh
no way
yeah.
you're resisting, mate, keeping your hands off that keyboard. Oh yeah, no way.
No, it does. It scratches an itch. That's for sure.
Definitely. Just back onto, so I know Brett does a lot of this as well, you co-founded, but back to the relationships and stuff like that.
Mhm.
I know we used the word off air before, shaking hands. Are you going to a lot of networking events and stuff like that, or is a lot of this done virtually? How does that go down in your world, mate?
Yeah, that's a great question. No, the sigh is because things have changed, right? They changed when COVID kind of disrupted the way that, frankly, everybody does business. Historically, yes, I did. Especially earlier on in my professional career, I would go to the networking events. I'm a big proponent when folks are talking about getting their foot in the door of cybersecurity, joining professional chapters, things like ISC squared, OWASP, ISACA, or even ISA is another great one. Joining those professional chapters, I think that is a much better approach, especially in hindsight, much better approach for building quality relationships than just going to a random dinner that a certain vendor is putting on in Atlanta. Not that those are bad, that there's value there as well. But as far as propelling yourself and others in their careers, building those close relationships at those professional chapters, I think that did wonders for me. And I'm sure it would benefit others to do the same.
Cool, mate. Been some good times recently. I know what business is like and stuff. It's never linear. Can you tell us about any tough times, or can you tell us about what you've done to get through them, how you cope, how you get those resilience levels where they need to be when things aren't going your way?
There absolutely have been challenges that I'd be lying to you if I said there weren't. And a lot of them, unfortunately, are very client specific. So I can't necessarily dig into the details of those. And you'll pick up that this is a common theme with me and my perspective and the things I talk about. But it ultimately boils down to when we have challenges at the organization, I take a lot of accountability. I look at something may go sideways. And even though I may not be personally involved in a certain situation, I always look back and say, okay, what could I have done? What could we have done as a leadership team to have made that situation not be as bad as it was? Right. So again, when things are difficult, I will look inward and I'll say, okay, is this a challenge? Why are we not able to just get right by this? And it usually boils back to, do we have the right processes in place? Are we doing the right things when we look to hire new people? Are we checking the right things? It's ultimately, like I said, I believe that when we do encounter those challenges, it's usually something that I could have done differently, or us as a leadership team could have done differently to have avoided those challenges. And yeah, I honestly, even before we had our R-Wolf platform, before AppSec as a service was a thing, and we were looking at our pipeline, looking at what do we have coming in this year, that was a challenging time, right? We were looking ahead. We're like, man, we're seeing more and more RFPs where folks are racing to the bottom, and sustainability just wasn't there for us. We would be fine, but it wasn't going to be an awesome place to work if we were just grinding and hitting the bottom of the barrel every single time. I think that's probably the most prominent example I can give, where we saw a challenge ahead of us and we had to correct course to account for that challenge. And we're always about investing in our people, investing in the company. And for us, that certainly played out well for us. Yeah. Again, Tom, I'm sorry. I wish I could give you more specific examples. And I don't want anyone to think that it's literally just perfect day in and day out. There's not. Every company faces challenges, and we just try to be responsible and address those challenges the best that we can.
Yeah, no, cool, mate, and thanks for that. And I like the way you look at things as well. Like we have a thing over here, mate, where we say, I always try and go, this is always have the attitude of it's always our fault in a way. Even if it's not, we still have that, because I think it forces you to improve. And we've had different things over the years. And was it really our fault? You can look at it different ways. But I think sometimes you just got to, again, it goes back to playing a slightly longer game and keeping people happy. And nothing's ever perfect. And social media can make everything look like it's perfect. But we all know the reality of running a business successfully long term. It's not easy, mate. But yeah, cool, mate. I know me and you have spoke before about branding and marketing and stuff like that. I know it's something that you really value and you're looking at moving forward to really refine and get your branding and marketing really rocking. Any thoughts on that, where you're heading? Any advice and tips for the listeners on what they could learn from what you're doing on that front?
For sure. So I'll be the first to admit, marketing for us at Abricto has not always been our strongest suit. And that's for a couple different reasons. The biggest one is we certainly looked to grow Abricto in a sustainable model. And for us, that meant leveraging the relationships that we had, certainly the relationships that Brent had. And so, frankly, that was more of a direct sales approach. We didn't have the need to go out there and boil the ocean with marketing because, again, we certainly didn't want to grow exponentially before we had the ability to deliver at that capacity. So today, again, we're in a really fortunate, good spot, right? The team's doing really well. We're staffed up to be in a good spot, but we are actively now trying to invest more in our marketing presence. And so we're doing that in a couple different ways. But obviously, I think the big one that everybody thinks about is, okay, what about like your actual web presence? What about your website? And that's a no-brainer. We're investing there to just shore up all of our content. We've got some outdated videos and stuff like that are going to get replaced. But the other ways that we invest in marketing is going out and sponsoring conferences. So I would encourage, frankly, all the security firms, right? If you have a cybersecurity conference that's local in your area, investing there, being a sponsor, generally doesn't break the bank, but it's just an awesome opportunity to have that marketing. You get your brand, get your logo, put all over the swag. And what's more important is you get a table, right? You get to go meet, talk to people. I know it's a crazy concept in the world of IT and especially cybersecurity, but just being out there, people recognize your brand, they recognize the logo. So you get a spot in the back of their head. So the next time they see your logo, they're like, oh yeah, wait a minute, I know these guys. They sponsored that cybersecurity conference. And if we're doing it right, we're not just sponsoring, we're also there talking and getting up in front of the crowd. Because again, for us, when I think about marketing, I think about brand awareness. And so a big piece of that is, again, showing face. It's giving back to the community in a way that's more than just, hey, we'll do some penetration testing for you, or we'll give you access to the R-Wolf platform. It's delivering value before there's ever even a project. And a couple different ways we do that is we'll do webinars, we'll go speak at conferences, we'll write some tools, some platforms, and we'll open source those tools to the community via GitHub. So yeah, we do podcasts like this, we do blog posts, anything that we can do to give back to that community. As far as I'm concerned, that's awesome marketing for us. And it also helps grow the consultants and their own professional reputation, right? People don't just think about, oh, who's Kyle Meyer or Ryan Woodard, right? They don't necessarily think about Abricto first and then those people. They think about, oh yeah, Ryan and Kyle, they certainly gave an awesome presentation at a local ISA conference, right? Oh, who do those guys work? They work for Abricto. So yeah, I don't mean to ramble, but when I do think about marketing, for me, it's very much so a multifaceted approach.
No, definitely, mate. There's so much, loads of stuff there because when you think about, I'm thinking about it from like an employee growth perspective, an employer branding perspective, and it's like use Ryan as the example. Ryan gets up on stage, his public speaking's good. That means when he's delivering finding, he's better. That means his self-development is looked after. If he's growing as a person, he's progressing in his career. That means he wants to stick around and be part of the Abricto journey. It
Yep.
means other people see it, the word spread. It's just like bang, all these different benefits. And also, by the way, like all this stuff is like really good fun.
It is.
Better than sitting on the sidelines. Like it's really good fun. And on that point, I just think you get out what you put in. You're talking about going sponsoring a conference, showing up, having conversations, people getting to know you. Yes, it's good fun, but you're not dipping your toe in the water. You literally dive in head first, and it might not all come back straight away, but over a 3, 5, 10-year period, this stuff does really come back. I think if you sat on the sidelines, you get out what you put in, mate, don't you?
Yeah, no, 100% agree, man. And it is. There's just so much value to doing that kind of stuff. It gives the consultants an opportunity to get up and present. It, like I said, it builds their own professional reputation. Whatever they're presenting on is probably a tool or some degree of research that they have done. So they grew professionally in that way as well. Yeah, it's a flywheel of awesomeness that happens.
It is, mate. And the other thing I think as well, like I think some people would think the time thing, but I was having this conversation the other day. I was like, hang on, we're all remote. We haven't got, not all remote, but pretty much most people that are remote these days. We haven't got to commute anywhere. But we're all like working, like for me, I'm working more hours than ever. And I'm like, hang on, like, of course we've got time to do a podcast. Of course we've got time to post. Like, we're not commuting for starters. I think sometimes you just feel like you've never got time. But if we all just take a step back and go, hang on, like, we're pretty efficient these days. Like, we can do a lot of stuff virtually. We're so much efficient. Even from 5 years ago, like, we're way more efficient, aren't we?
Oh man, yeah, I definitely agree with that. And almost to a detriment, right? It's finding a good work life harmony is not always an easy thing. I know here at Bricto, we're pretty intentional about not blowing people up in the middle of the night. Frankly, that's one of the reasons why we're an offensive security, not a defensive. I don't want my folks getting woken up at 2 a.m. because of an incident. God bless those people that have to do it. It does. It takes people like that doing their jobs too. But yeah, Tom, to your point, there is. With people not having to commute, it does give them a greater degree of flexibility with their time. And I think it's important to them and also us as employers to respect those bounds. But at the same time, when you trust your people and you give them the opportunity to work from home, generally speaking, they'll have a greater degree of autonomy of their own time. And so I think that it gives us the opportunity to do things that maybe prior to the whole COVID thing, we wouldn't have had time for because I got to hop in my car at 3:30 in the afternoon to avoid an hour and a half gridlock on the way home, right? There's more opportunity to do those kinds of things.
Yeah, I think it's easier to take for granted. I notice it if I hang around for a long period of time with any of my friends that are in construction or have got their own bars and stuff like that, and they comment to me like, "Oh God, I wish I did what you did." I'm like, "Are you sure? Do you realize how much stress it is sometimes?" But anyway, the point I'm making is they're just like like the whole virtual remote thing. It gives us all a lot of freedom. We're all probably pretty privileged, really, in that respect. It's pretty cool. But yeah, okay, mate. As we move on, then, Cornell, on resources and stuff out there for people listening, anything, and this could be security, this could be like in the weeds technical stuff, or maybe even more growing your business. But what kind of resources or books or material are you tapping into at the minute that's like elevating your career growth, mate?
Yeah, no, that's I think different for everybody. But for me, coming from a fairly technical background, I think just knowing the current market for cybersecurity and folks trying to get their foot in the door, it's probably pretty prudent for me to speak to that piece of it. That's probably where I'll provide more value than talking about necessarily starting your own business. But I think for folks that are trying to get their foot in the door, some resources that would be beneficial for them. I think the first is building a portfolio to be able to showcase things that you're passionate about and things that you're good at. If I just take a few steps back and think about what it was like coming out of college, simply having a resume and applying just isn't enough. Certainly not in cybersecurity. But back to the things that we're doing at Abricto to differentiate our value, sometimes you got to look at yourself and think, okay, how can I differentiate my value? So if you're in cybersecurity, that means building that portfolio. Start a blog and write about different things that you're researching. How do you stand up a hypervisor like Proxmox and then maybe install something like Security Onion on it and run some malware samples on it and dissect those malware samples? And that's just an example, but there's just so many opportunities to create content out of that kind of exercise. And back to the flywheel of awesomeness, you're growing technically and your professional capabilities there, but you're also giving back to the community. You're also building your portfolio. So when you do go apply at those positions, you're not just another piece of paper, right? You can point at, hey, here are all the cool things that I've done, even before I've gotten my foot in the door. So I would highly encourage folks to do that. A couple of actual hands-on resources, Tom, that you're asking about. I've always been a big fan of Over the Wire. For folks that are interested in network penetration testing, go check out Over the Wire. They have a whole slew of war games that you can participate in. It's very beginner friendly. It's not anything that's impossible for people to do. They'll walk you through all the different exercises, but also don't be fooled to think that, oh, okay, this is just a walk in the park. No, I'll speak from firsthand experience. Those challenges get incredibly difficult as you continue to work your way through the ranks there. So it's a blast. It's fun. It's challenging, but it's also, again, it'll build people's ability to do things in this field. Just a couple more for you, Tom. I'm passionate about this, man.
No, this is great. Keep going.
I like growing people and I like seeing people get after it and grow themselves. If you are interested in web application penetration testing, OWASP is the de facto, right? Seems like everybody knows about OWASP. Hopefully they do. But for folks that are new to the field, they may not know who that is. But go check out OWASP. They've got a couple of platforms that they've built, and it's all community driven, right? These are all just people that are looking to make it a slightly more secure place, or make the internet a bit more of a secure place to be in. But they've got some vulnerable applications that are purpose built to be exploited. Juice Shop is one of the more recent ones. Go check that out. It's just, again, it's a great opportunity to get your hands on the keyboard and exploit some stuff. Just, again, before I catch myself rambling, a couple more I want to mention here is the Portswigger Web Academy.
Yes.
Just a phenomenal free resource at everybody's disposal. Portswigger puts out Burp Suite Professional. It's the de facto Swiss Army knife, if you will, for application penetration testing. They built this academy and made it available to everybody. And it's literally every vulnerability you can think of. They have a module for it where they spin up an application, they give you Burp Suite, and they say, here you go, hack this thing. And they explain how it's done. So just a massive wealth of training opportunities out there for people nowadays. But just one last thing I want to encourage people is don't get too narrow-sighted on how to hack things. Some of the best security consultants I've ever met are folks that don't just know how to break something, but they also know how to build it. If you know how to build it, you will learn, okay, these are some of the shortcuts that people try to take to get something out in production a little bit more quickly. And so that makes you a better hacker or a better security consultant, because you're going to know the things to look for. You're going to know where those shortcuts are and where those platforms can be exploited. For me, again, everybody's journey is different. I'm a big AWS fanboy. For me, that was doing AWS. They have their own training, right? The solutions architect, they have a whole ladder of certifications you can go through. I just feel like where we're at today, everybody's in the cloud or moving to the cloud. That was a big one for me to explore.
Too many learning resources. I'm never going to stop you from doing that.
Sure.
Mate, that sounds great. Over the Wire, Juice Sharp, It was Portsmouth. Obviously, I'm biased because they're UK guys. Of course, I think they're amazing, but it is absolutely banging. And the fact that I keep saying on LinkedIn, like, we've got to stop like shouting about the fact it's free, because surely they'll start charging for it soon, because it is mega and it is free. And yeah, don't be too narrow. Look at things from a blue team and a red team perspective. And on that first bit, Cornel, you're preaching to the choir, mate, on that. Like, making your resume, applying with just a resume these days, it just isn't enough. That's what a lot of people do, but it isn't enough.
Right.
On I can't remember why I was going to mention this, but something you said earlier, I was just going to mention on the getting the name out there and getting the brand out there. So I read a stat recently, or I heard a stat on social media, that basically personal LinkedIn profiles get 27 times more reach than company ones. Yeah. And the reason LinkedIn do that is because they want companies to pay for the paid ads through the company pages and spend a load of money. So they keep the personal profiles. That's why I've seen it before, like company pages do get significantly less reach. But when we bring back to the public speaking and the team getting involved and doing this and doing that, and then the team posting about it, if you've got guys and girls, 15 pen testers, if they're all posting about the brand and posting about the things and speaking at events and doing this and doing that over like a 2, 3, 4 year period, it's going to enhance their personal brands. So they're going to elevate their own career progression, but also that's going to boom, like rocket the company brand. So I think that's another, going back to that point 10 minutes ago, it's another reason to do all that stuff as well. But yeah, LinkedIn aren't stupid, mate, are they?
No, definitely not. They've got an algorithm and they got it figured out. That's for sure.
They have, mate. They have. Also, as well, Connor, you mentioned, you said, "Oh, I got," and I think you're probably being a bit modest, mate. I think you said, "Oh, I got lucky and I got a break and stuff like that." I'm a firm believer you make your own luck, and I think for anyone out there, that I think it is just a case of just keep going. I had a chap from NetSpy the other day. He got something like rejected from 150 interviews trying to break in, and he's now like a really senior pen tester at NetSpy. And it's easy to look at you now, mate, and go, God, it's all right for him and another bit, but it is a grind, mate, and nothing comes easy, does it?
No, I 100% agree, man. I say everybody got their break, but I should clarify that break doesn't just happen to everybody, and it's certainly not a guarantee. Getting that, I had a coach in high school that told me luck was the intersection of opportunity and preparedness. So the preparedness is a big piece, right? The opportunity eventually may show itself, but if you haven't put in the work to capitalize on that opportunity, then you're not going to get lucky. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, I hear, Tom, what you're saying, and I agree, man. It's, if you're just sitting back waiting for that phone call where someone's going to say, yeah, let's set up an interview, or maybe you get the interview. You may never get that phone call if what you've put in front of them doesn't stick out and doesn't resonate with them. But even if you do find yourself lucky enough to get that call, again, if you haven't put in the work to stand out from the competition when you do get in there and have those interviews, then yeah, it's not gonna pan out super well.
Yeah, no, definitely, mate. You mentioned the word coach there, and it brings me on quite nicely to the next question, which is to do with coaches and mentors. Who have you had to look up to in that sense, and what are your thoughts on mentors and people listening, finding one, getting one, choosing the right one? Any advice there?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, again, everybody's path is going to be different. For me, I knew pretty early on that cybersecurity and specifically offensive security was going to be what I wanted to do. When I was at the University of North Georgia, I was working there part-time in their cybersecurity department, but I was also obviously doing my undergrad degree at the time. And so mentors for me, we had a professor, Bryson Payne. He's still there. Absolutely incredible human being. He will, if he thinks you have that fire in your belly and you want to learn and grow, he will do whatever he needs to do. He'll move mountains to help support you in your journey to grow. So finding people like that are just fully bought into your success, super invaluable. But again, you have to put yourself in the right places to be surrounded by those people. And fortunately for me, he was not just a professor at the time, he was also the CIO of the university. So it was just, again, a perfect confluence of being in the right place at the right time, having that position, also being a student. He and I got really close, and I think he was instrumental in getting me to where I am today. And my ability to deliver in my current capacity. So that was one awesome mentor I had. Another one I had, again, I think early on in my career, because I think for most people, that's where they need that mentor most. Not that later on a mentor wouldn't also be extremely invaluable, but especially when you're first just getting your feet wet and learning the tools of the trade. A second one I had was Brian Murray, also at the University of North Georgia. So while I was working there part-time in the Security Operations Center, he was the manager of the SOC. And yeah, just somebody that was there to support me when I needed somebody to bounce ideas off of. He was there for me for that. But also he taught me to think in a way that would make me successful as a penetration tester. He challenged me, but I would go to him. I'd say, "Hey, Brian, can you just like, how do I pull this image off of this disk, and then like, how do I extract the SAM database out of it?" He would never just give me the answer straight up. He would ask to see, what have I done to figure out that answer already? And if the answer was nothing, he would say, "Don't come to me with this. Go Google it, go watch a YouTube video, figure it out. And if you still can't do it, then come back to me." So yeah, just important lessons like that he ingrained in me early on still stick with me today. And I think, Tom, back to your question, how do you find those mentors? It's different for everybody, but you have to put yourself in the right place to be surrounded by people that can be your mentors. And I think another big piece of it is just being able to ask. I mentioned earlier those professional chapters. I've been a part of 2 different ISA chapters, been part of the one in Atlanta and been part of the one in Augusta, Georgia. Silly story here, but when I was still in college, I would drive from Dahlonega, Georgia, all the way to Augusta in one day just to attend that ISA meeting, because I was so convinced that the people that were part of that ISA chapter were phenomenal. So I would drive all the way down there, surround myself with those people. We talk shop, and I drive all the way back that night and ready for 8 a.m. accounting the next day. But I think it's a good example of those. They're not just going to find you. You have to go out there and find those mentors. And I think chapters like that, professional chapters like that, are some of the best places to do it. And just one more shout out to the OWASP group, because they have a Winter of Code challenge that they did 10 years ago when I was a part of it, and they may still do it. But yeah, it's just, here's this community of people who care about cybersecurity, and they're building tools and platforms to make cybersecurity more effective and easier to grasp. And so that's free to join. You can reach out and you'll literally get paired with a mentor and put in a group of peers, and it doesn't cost anything. Like, it's just, hey, they just ask for an hour of your time a week. And again, something awesome that you can put on your resume.
Yeah, no, definitely, mate. Thanks for that call. And by the way, mate, when you talk there about driving here and driving there, I just think that level of like commitment, passion, and drive, it's just like infectious, mate. Like when people see you do that, from a mentor perspective, it's like,
Oh yeah.
oh, do you know what? I just want to help that guy. Like it definitely has that effect. And yeah, mate, it's nice to see that level of passion. It's good, mate. But mate, listen, it ties in the service with RWolf and AppSec as a service. It sounds like the stuff I'm hearing. It sounds like it's exciting. You seem like you. But I won't ask you how old you are. I feel like it's a bit rude, but you seem like a young guy. Like you're a young guy as well. Like you do. Yeah, it seems like things are like you've got like a long way ahead of you as well. So it's seeming pretty exciting. But apart from what else is on the horizon for Abricto? Any future plans? More of the same kind of?
Yeah, the plan tomorrow, Pinky, is to take over the world. So just kidding. But yeah, the plan for us is we don't necessarily want to be the biggest. One of the things you mentioned books earlier, and you were like, are there any books you want to recommend to folks? And one of the ones that I think about that probably had one of the biggest impacts on me as a leader and growing Abricto Security was Patrick Lencioni wrote a book called The Ideal Team Player. And it talks about the things that make incredible people as your coworkers, right? Like when you're out there recruiting and you're looking to hire new folks, Patrick talks about, you always want to look for folks that are humble, hungry, and smart. And we've ingrained that here at Abricto. So in our hiring processes. And so if you're asking me, what does the future look like for Abricto? We're going to be very careful. We have been since day one, but we're going to continue to be that careful, because at the end of the day, I said it earlier, people don't buy from companies, they buy from people. And our people are everything to us, right? When we go out there and we're delivering a penetration test, they're talking to another human being, right? There's somebody that's wearing the Abricto shirt. So we want to make sure that those people are absolute 10 out of 10 awesome consultants to work with. We want the clients at the end of that to be like, man, I can't wait to have these guys back next year because I just want to keep talking to them and picking their brain. So yeah, as we look at the future for Abricto, it's careful growth, sustainable, and just taking care of the people that are already here, man. I don't take that lightly that people trust me and trust Brent and the leadership team here at Abricto to be their employer, to place that trust in us. And so it's a heavy focus on growing the people that are here and also taking care of our clients. And if we keep that focus, it means we can't bring on 200 people in 365 days. That's just not the way that we operate. And I think we're probably going to keep it that way. It's slow, sustainable growth. And yeah, I think that's what's best for us. And I think that's what's best for our clients.
Yeah, definitely, mate. Look, I promised you an hour, but I did say we'd get chatting. Sorry, I broke the promise, but listen, mate, it's been really good, and it's clear that you're going places you already are, and mate, it's really good to see. And I'm sure other business owners listening or people thinking about making a transition, and even people breaking in as well would have learned a lot today. So yeah, mate, do you think we've about covered it, mate? Do you think we've about done it?
Yeah, man. I think people are probably tired of listening to me ramble at this point.
No, not at all, mate. Honestly, and in addition to what I've just said, that's probably the most informative answer we've had on the learning resources. Genuinely, mate, I like it, and it's really good. So thanks for that as well, mate. And
Awesome.
thank you, mate. Genuinely, really enjoyed that, mate. And I'm sure we'll speak soon, buddy. Thanks, mate.
Of course. Thank you.